as human beings, we've always been told that we need to plan ahead, and also we need to plan for a contingency in case things fall apart. I guess for today we'll get to speak to us about exactly what it means to fail forward, what it means to actually, look at things from a different perspective. I guess for today is Masego Khutsoane, who I call a serial entrepreneur. She calls herself a procurement mentor. I will get to speak to her about exactly who she is, what she does, where she comes from, and why she does the things that she does, and most importantly, what we can do as people to start planning to fail forward. Masego,
Yes.
good afternoon and welcome to Conversations with Nnusi.
Thank you, Nnusi. Thank you for having me.
I mean, maybe let's start here and speak about who's Masego Khutsoane.
So Masego is a eternal optimist.
Okay.
She is a procurement advocate,
Okay.
and she's a mom, she's a wife, she's a friend. But I think more than that, Masego is just human
Mm.
and trying to figure out life like everybody else.
What's an eternal optimist? How do you unpack that? If I were to ask you, what is that? What is that?
I think it's somebody who is not afraid to learn,
Okay.
somebody who's not afraid to be uncomfortable,
Mm.
because the reality is that life will throw things at you, and it's a decision that you have to now make. Are you going to allow life to dictate how you then your turn out in terms of life is,
Hmm.
or you going to actually ensure that you get what you want out of life, regardless and in spite of any other things that comes your way?
Mm. Okay. And where's home for you?
Home is Soweto, so I grew up in Soweto, but home right now is Fourways.
Okay. So, as a little girl growing up in Soweto,
Mm.
I'm assuming you had ambitions in terms of being somebody else when you were a bit older. Others wanted to become doctors. My parents wanted me to be a doctor. I wanted to be a lawyer at some point, and look at me today, I'm doing something else. What did you want to be growing up as a little
So this is a funny one.
girl? Okay.
Growing up in the streets of Soweto, I actually wanted to be a gynecologist.
Okay.
I fell in love with the name. I didn't understand what it meant.
Okay.
And then I remember, I think I was in Standard 5, which is like what, grade 7?
Grade 7 now.
And somebody said to me, "Do you know what a gynecologist does?" And I said, "No." But I assume it's a doctor, so they wear white coats, they see people every day. And the person explained to me, and I was like, no way.
Okay.
So I wanted to be a doctor. And then fast forward, I actually wanted to be in IT, and I studied IT.
Okay.
But here I am in procurement. So life has a very funny way of turning the script on one.
So, how did the switch happen? I mean, so here you go and study IT, but you end up in procurement. So, where was the split?
So the split happened that my bursa at the time, when after I had graduated and now gone back into the swing of things,
Mm.
couldn't actually place me
Okay.
because I studied information systems, which is very different from
Your
your
normal
normal
IT.
IT,
Yeah.
because it's the management of systems.
Mm.
So they had to place me, and they ended up placing me in a team that actually worked with IT equipment, but had to go and negotiate contracts with
Oh,
suppliers.
okay.
And that's how I fell into procurement. And I decided, okay, you know what? Make the best of it, learn, and be the best. Because I'm one of those people. I compete against myself.
Mm.
I always want to be the best at what I do. So the I had no choice but to make sure that whatever I put my hands to, I have to succeed at.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with procurement, and I never looked back.
That's an interesting one. I mean, look, I know our conversations around failing forward, um, but I just want to quickly touch on the procurement space. When people think procurement, they think red tape, they think corruption,
Yeah,
they think such admin.
yeah.
So if you're to simplify this for an ordinary Joe soap down the street, what is procurement and how does it work?
Sure, Lucy. Two things. I think we are talking about failing forward, and if
Mm.
you listen to my story, you'll realize that it's not, it hasn't been a straight up story. It hasn't been a
Yeah.
smooth story.
Mm.
And I think we've already touched on the failing forward part
Yeah.
of it, because you make the best of what you have.
What you have at disposal, yes.
Secondly, procurement is in our day-to-day deals. This is
Okay.
how I always explain it.
Right.
The
I'm
fact that
curious.
right now we are sitting, we are drinking tea, juice, we bought something.
Yeah.
That is procurement. So it's the art of buying. But
Mm.
now procurement now becomes, and from a strategic perspective, this is now what we call strategic sourcing,
Okay.
not the administrative part of it. And the administrative part is the actual buying, the actual payment, the actual making sure that there's processes in place to do that. But now the strategic element of it is, how do you make sure that you are buying something that is of quality, you are buying from the right people at the right time, um, within the right scope of things, whether that supplier. So you're looking at different things, different elements from a process perspective, system perspective, people perspective, um, economic perspective. What we normally call in my world pestel.
Okay.
So you look at, and this is what makes it exciting:
Okay.
political elements, economic element, social element, technological element, societal elements, legal
Okay.
elements. Now, that's what procurement is. It actually touches everything in our day-to-day lives. The challenge, I think, especially in South Africa, is it's always seen as an administrative task. It's never necessarily seen as something that is strategic one, but also something that can improve people's lives from a different element, not just ESD. We normally talk
Yeah.
about enterprise supply development, but day to day, how do we procure? Why do we procure where we procure? And how do we actually improve people's lives through procurement?
So can we deduce this to then lack of education in terms of understanding what?
Yes,
Okay.
I
So
agree.
so that's fine. So then to the sweet spot of our conversation, and that is failing forward. I mean,
Yeah.
as people, we've always been told you must always have a plan B.
Yeah.
You must always save for rainy days. You must always, you know, do all of these things. But no one really says to us, plan to fail forward. In your understanding, what is to fail forward?
I think it means being married to your potential.
Okay.
So I'll try and unpack that.
Please do.
I don't believe in having a plan B.
Okay.
I don't. I believe that once you are sold out on what you want to do, once you are motivated, once you are passionate, once you have given yourself over to what you want to do, there you don't have a choice but to succeed.
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like you said, it's true. We've seen it so many times. Sometimes it's not even about, because sometimes we want to define success in a certain way. The fact that you are actually trying, the fact that you are actually waking up and doing, whether you feel like it or you don't feel like it, you already succeeded more than
Those that are not doing anything.
those that are not doing it. And the reality is that we, once you're married to your potential, you have no choice but to invest in yourself.
Mhm.
You are careful in terms of the time that you spend. Where do you spend your time? The type of people that you surround yourself with, the type of content that you actually consume, and sometimes even the food that you consume.
Okay.
Because you have a plan. So I'll use I was thinking Will Smith, right?
Okay.
But
We'll use it. Okay.
let's use Will Smith. he he talks about, he grew up knowing that he doesn't want to be sad. He saw his dad, and his dad was such a fun, welcoming, always looking at the glass half full type of guy. And he realized, okay, I want that. I actually want that out of my life. And because of that, he's not scared of failure.
Okay.
He goes out and he says, I cannot fail because I'm going to put my best. And what normally happens is that along the way, he's met so many people that said to him, I like how you do this. I actually want you to join me doing this. What do you think of 1, 2, 3? And the same thing with my life, Nnusi, to be honest with you. I've met so many people where I'm thinking that, oh my goodness, I'm not doing this properly. And people will come up to me and say, I like what you said with 1, 2, 3, or the way you did it. Do you mind coming to join me? So it's no longer me having plan B, but actually life opening itself up to possibilities, because I was not afraid to fail. I put myself out there and I said I want to succeed. And that's exactly what happened.
I mean, Masego, I mean, you've just completely gone completely against everything that you've been taught as kids
Yeah.
growing up, right? because we've always been told if this doesn't fail or if this doesn't
Don't work.
work, then
Have
have
something.
something else to
Yes.
do. And now here you are telling me that I need to invest everything that I have in the now and
Yeah.
allow the world to give me opportunities. So and then you speak about being married to your potential.
Mm.
Uh, how then do you identify what your potential is as a human being?
Sure. Okay, I'm gonna try and answer your question because it's a loaded question.
Okay.
So firstly, I think I mentioned, being married to your potential talks about knowing and falling in love with learning,
Okay.
learning, unlearning, relearning. So you can never really arrive as a human being on earth.
Yeah.
That I believe in that. And because you can never really arrive, you are always opening yourself up to a learning opportunity.
Okay.
And by learning, you're actually investing in yourself. So in doing that, you are then saying, I am not just one thing. I will not put into a box. I am a few things. So you you allow yourself to be able to um, I think grow academically, spiritually, emotionally, relationally. Because the minute you learn, you open yourself up to a whole world of possibilities around you.
Mm.
Okay? So that's the one thing. Now, be married to your potential. Um, what do I mean by that? I think it directly speaks to what I've just said in terms of if you know that you are not where you want to be now, how do you then move to where you want to be in the next, let's say, year, next 2 years? Who are the types of people that you need to associate yourself with or even engage with to be at that level?
Mm.
Now, if you're going to engage with a Will Smith, a Vusi Tembekwayo, you better know your story.
Yeah.
How do you know your story? You need to be forever ready, if I can put it that way.
Okay.
How do you do that? You invest in time to read books that are interesting, listen to YouTube, listen to Nnusi podcasts,
Oh wow! Thank
be
you.
inspired, be motivated.
Mm.
But it's also about not waiting for other people to tell you that, I'm proud of you,
Mm.
you're doing well. You yourself have to engage with yourself and say, am I learning? Am I growing? Is there areas in myself that I don't like? And how do I get honest feedback from people around me to tell me about my blind spots so that I can grow from where I am to where I need to be? So when you do that, automatically you've got plan B, plan C, plan D. You are not just sitting and waiting for others to come to you, but you're able to go out there and have different conversation with different people.
Mm.
And already you are interesting. You are not just in one mold. You're not
Yeah.
seeing yourself as I'm in procurement,
That's
in
it. Yeah.
corporate, and that's it about me. You like I say, you've already made yourself an investment and a
Okay.
person of value rather than somebody who people will just see in one box. I hope I've answered your question.
You have so
Yeah.
the takeouts for me are so one, you must be teachable,
Yeah.
right? Two, you must invest in yourself and allow yourself to evolve
Yes.
as a human being and don't
Correct.
force yourself into doing one thing.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's my takeout.
Mm.
Um, but then the question is, so if I go into business and I throw everything that I have in this business. So I'll give you an example, personal example. So in 2012, 2013, I started a cleaning service business. Threw everything that I had in this business. It was doing well for a bit, and then I started breaking even for indefinitely.
Yeah.
And for me, that was not success because
Yeah.
as much as breaking even was a safer option, no one goes into business to break even.
Yes.
We eventually go into this thing to make some money out of it, right?
Correct.
I then closed shop, and then I went back to default setting, which was corporate. Right?
Mm.
So the question is, how then do I, as a business person, plan to fail forward? What are the things that I should be looking at doing? What are the? I mean, there's no rule book in terms of in all of these things, but the question is, what are some of the key pillars or the key things that I must be looking into or looking at as I fail forward into this business world?
So that's a trickier one,
Okay.
because now we're not talking. So I was talking about, you as a person and investing yourself into yourself.
Okay.
Now, if you're talking business, I you know, entrepreneurs, and no offense to anybody, to go into entrepreneurship, you need to have elements of insanity.
Yeah.
I think that has been proven. Because unfortunately, with entrepreneurship, you have to be so convinced that you can make a difference. You can either make a difference, make money, or improve. I don't know. You become, what I always say to my kids, the bee's knees. Like, you are different from everybody
Yeah.
else. Now, to think like that, you have to be special. Now, most of the time, what I've learned in my 20 years in procurement, most of the guys that actually make it in business are guys that cannot write a business plan,
Okay.
are guys that cannot actually even articulate themselves properly when you are in a boardroom.
Yeah.
This is the reality, what I have
Yeah.
realized. Now, what they do is they become flexible.
Okay.
This is now I've what I've realized. What they do is, okay, they know something can work. Let's say my business, procurement. I went into it as a consultancy company, as a speaking. Once I do my speaking engagements, I then use procurement. And then 2020 happened. COVID happened.
Yeah.
The reality is, if you have a 60-page document, normally people would, most entrepreneurs would say, okay, this is what I've planned. What do I do? This has to work. I have to find a way to work. The other entrepreneurs that I was talking about would think, okay, this is not working. How do I pivot? I mean, that was
Yeah.
the biggest word in 2020.
Yeah.
Now, to pivot might mean that you might not make money in the first month or second month
Or even third.
or third month. But you know that, okay, I am no longer, like, I started doing webinars. And I started, I had come up with a mentorship school back then, but it wasn't time to launch it. Um, so webinars, mentorship school, a community of practice for procurement people. How do I then sell it out? How do I, convert the people that I already know into a commercially viable model? So you have to be flexible. So I think if you are saying pillars, you have to be flexible.
Flexibility. Okay.
You have to look at your. It's like raising a child. If you think your child is going to be a doctor, like you were saying earlier on, and you realize that your child is not good at maths, you come up with plan B,
Yeah,
and you
what's the
say,
contingency?
yes, let's study history, let's study geography, and you take that step with the child. So I think you also need to be teachable still. You need to learn. You need to know that success is not a one man's sport. I think that's another thing that we always think. Rona, especially batho ba bantsho, ne?
Yeah.
We we've got this thing ya gore ke tla ba bontsha. I will succeed. But the reality is, if you look at the Jews as an example, if you look at the Indians, look at other nations, the way they succeed is not a one man's sport.
Yeah, they're hunting packs.
Yes. And they know somebody who knows somebody to actually help them out. And I think it's time, Rones Batons, we start taking pride in that and saying, as a community, how do we get ourselves up to the next level? And that's my prayer, that's my hope, that Bana ba rona, as much as re to these fancy schools and they are now growing in suburbs, ultimately we will come up with the buntu, re foditse ka botho. Botho bo ba gore, how do we then engage ourselves to be the next best thing? And for me, I think that's how you succeed. You have a community of power, and a community of power is people that will not judge you. It's people that, a mentor, sponsor, a coach, people that that I can go to Nnusi and ask for information about this. I can go to Masego and say, hook me up with 1, 2, 3. That's a sponsor.
Yeah.
A coach, somebody who you can go and say, I'm failing here. Show me what I'm not seeing. Because, like we were saying, failure is not necessarily a bad thing. You learn.
Yeah.
Most of the biggest lessons actually come from failing.
Yeah.
how do I turn this around to my benefit? And so I don't know how you did it, but
One day we'll talk about
the,
it.
the one thing that I've also learned is that the minute you don't give up, the minute you say, okay, fine, this business is not making money, how do I pivot? How do I change it? Who do I need to engage with? The minute you start that process, you then meet different people who can actually say to you, I like what you're talking about. How about we change it and do it this way? And that's how I've sort of been able to make my career and my business a success
Okay,
to what it
so
is.
be flexible, be teachable again.
Yeah. Community of power.
You have a community of power,
Yeah.
and and allow yourself to engage with others,
Yeah.
and be open to criticism and
Yes,
feedback.
feedback.
Yeah,
Feedback.
I think.
Yeah.
Um, Look, I think Masego, I think the things that you're speaking about become practical in our daily lives.
Yeah.
So the principles of success in business become applicable in life.
Life. Yes.
They become
Yes.
applicable in our education background. They become applicable in how we relate with one another as a community and as a society.
Yeah.
So now that you've looked at your 20-year career span, um, what are the things that you still want to achieve for yourself as a business person in the next 5 years? Maybe let's take it 5 years.
I I think for me it's about making impact.
Okay.
What that impact looks like, I'm still defining.
Okay.
But I do know that I want to change the face of procurement in South Africa. That's one.
Okay.
The biggest one being that with the mentorship school, as an example, I want, and this cuts across. That's a funny thing. The more you build this baby, the more you realize that it's not just for procurement people. But I want South Africans to, especially Black South Africans, and if we were to scale it down, Black women, to be proud of where they are in terms of corporate South Africa and the impact that they have from a careers point of view, but also corporately in terms of the role that they play within procurement. As I said earlier on, procurement is seen as an administrative role. I want to change that and make it into a strategic role. I think that is already in play, but I don't like the word empower, because I do believe that people are already empowered. They just need to tap into that power and
Okay.
realize and walk into that. So that's one. The other one is I want to make money.
We
I
all do.
think
We all do.
everybody wants to make money, and not just small money. You see, I want to make money that I can wake up in the morning and say, it rained. I want to go to a school in Soweto and go and find out, do they need laptops? Do they need stationery? Do they need, do the children actually have clothes for winter? For me, I believe that's impact, because you're not just living for yourself and your family, but you're actually creating a legacy. What I've learned, so growing up in Soweto, I mean, this is like back in the day. A lot of the people that we felt were motivational, encouraging, they were always on TV.
Yeah.
You never really got to meet people that were like heroes.
Your ordinary heroes on the stage.
Yes, and I think for me, I want to be relatable. I want to have that type of impact where a 6, 7, 9-year old can come up to me and say, "I was Masego. Seriously, I can be anything that I want to be," and say, "Yes, you can," because I grew up in Soweto. I grew up politicianing. There was nothing special about me except that I knew that I wanted to be better than where my parents ended up, or where my parents were at the time. So I think 5 years, I would like to, my friends and I always talk about this, like start an angel network of sorts for business people that will actually have an impact directly to our communities in Soweto, Alex, Tembisa, etc., etc.
And what would you tell your younger self? So if you were to look in the mirror and see your younger self, what would you tell?
That you are magic. you know.
Okay. There was something else.
You are you are magic. You are impactful. You are powerful. You are amazing.
Mm.
I think you don't. Sometimes it's important to hear these words because I battled with self doubt. I battled with self esteem. I battled with imposter syndrome.
Mm.
And I know because I mean I engage with a lot of women in my line of business. I know I'm not alone in that.
Mm.
So I would assure my younger self that you are worthy. You 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 need to occupy space. You know, Zozi said it.
Mm.
Occupy and really be established in wherever you go. It's sad that if you really look at especially children in the townships, I suppose our kids in the urbanized areas, it's a different story
Yeah.
because they're getting exposed. So there's a lot of us that are coming out to say, you are worthy, you can do this. They see that, but I feel like it's only the minority. The majority are still left behind.
Mm.
And if we want to really make an impact as Black people in South Africa, we really need to go back to that majority and make them aware of the power they possess. And you know, I always say it's not about going to buy a child shoes. It's not about feeding schemes or for me it's not about that. It's bigger than that. It's
Mm.
actually awakening the giant in the person so that the person realizes that I can conquer the world. I am more than a conqueror. Once you've done that, I'm telling you, 10 years, 20 years, we'll be a different nation as Black people.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
that's what I would tell my younger self.
Right. Right. That's a
Because I would
mouthful.
be I would be further had I known some of these things.
And lastly, and I think this for me is the most important question of all my conversations with people, and the question has always been, what is your value proposition?
Yeah, Nnusi.
So, meaning, what is that one
I
thing?
know.
What is that one thing that you want to be remembered for when people mention your names and you're not even in the room? What is that one thing that you want people to remember you
That I see you.
for? Okay?
It goes back to what I've just said. Um, and I think the type of society I think we find ourselves in now. People, when you meet people generally, and I hope I'm not offending
No.
anyone, but I'm gonna say
Listen,
it.
no holds back.
What normally happens is that the first thing I'll say is, "Oh, Nnusi, so who are you? What do you do?
Mm.
Okay, what can I gain from
Yeah,
you?"
it's a it's a class exercise.
Yay! People never really get to know you for you, and I don't like that because I believe that once you get to know Nnusi for Nnusi, the value that you wanted to extract initially would be much more once you actually
Get to
realize
understand. Yeah.
that, wait a minute, this person actually acknowledges me for me. And that's powerful,
Mm.
as I was saying earlier on. You know, as a community, as a Black community, if we were to learn to do that, then you realize that a person's value is not necessarily measured by the car that they drive, the place that they live, the title that they actually hold. It's much more because remember, we as human beings, you change. Today, I could be the head of whatever
Mm.
in a JSC listed company. Tomorrow, I might be unemployed, but next week I could actually be a president of something else.
Yeah.
Now, depending on when you meet me in my life and you decide that I'm going to judge this person based on
Where they are.
when
Mm.
and where they are, it's a grave mistake.
Mm.
And that's what normally happens because now some people then make those decisions. Now, as myself, if I decide that, okay, I'm going to write you off because you've decided that I'm in this box, next week you come to me and you're like, oh, myself, oh, you know, I know you. How about we do this? Oh, I've already written you
Written you
off.
off, yeah.
So it's you are of no use because I've seen that you don't necessarily value me. You value the position that I occupy.
Or the benefit that you can get out of it.
Correct, correct. And I think that's how we fail each other.
Mm.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your time. I really have learned a lot, and may your star keep rising and keep shining.
Thank you.
May everything that you touch, flourish and expand.
Thank you.
Um, and I hope that you're able to impact many lives, especially women, in your journey, of ensuring that we create more Masegos who are able to do greater and better things than what this Masego has been able to achieve.
Amen.
So thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Yes, this was conversation with Nnusi, and we got to speak about what it means to fail forward, and the principles that we've taken out of this. I hope we're able to apply them in our daily lives, in our businesses, in how we relate with each other. Please, let's rekindle our relationship again. Let's continue to have conversation with Nnusi. It's conversation with Nnusi on YouTube and on Spotify and SoundCloud. It's Nnusi Gazi. Thank you.